Hey everyone, welcome back to our videos. And I want to take a little break this time from talking about the logistical and organizational things and share with you a success story. For those of you who have been involved with the ministry in Guatemala since the beginning, or for at least the first few years that we were operating down in Guatemala, you might remember a woman named Diana. Diana Estuardo and Andre, her two sons, they moved to the area of Linda Vista, Guatemala back in February of 2013, about a month before my wife and I moved down there. And the two boys were the result of a relationship that Diana had, and her husband wound up leaving her, the boy's father. It kind of left them in a bad spot, as is typical in Guatemala, unfortunately, as well as other countries in Central America. A lot of men will leave their spouses and their kids when financial things get difficult or they decide they need to move on. The responsibility to family is not as important to the family of like your spouse and your kids as it is to your previous family that you grew up in. Not that that really has much of a weight upon how many people leave their families or their kids behind, but it is really disheartening to see that there's this big vacuum of fathers leaving, and the cycle just repeats itself. And we find a lot of our families that we serve, unfortunately, are single moms with their kids left because the dad left, and as the women say, that the men like to have their fun and then they run off when it's time to be responsible, unfortunately. So Diana had connected with City of Refuge Church, which is a church that we work with down there. And back when the founding pastor was still working there, Pastor Jorge Sr., and she had gone to school for accounting and secretarial work. She had learned a bit of English, and so she had connected with the church to help them with the church and also hosting teams. Now, since she's able to speak English, she was able to translate for teams that come down to work and partner with the church and be in the community, but it really wasn't lucrative enough for her to survive. And so she also has a passion for cooking, for big parties and for people, and she's really good at it and she loves doing it. So she had tried starting her own catering business, doing stuff locally, but it just wasn't enough. When you live in an impoverished area like that, people can only pay so much money for those kinds of things. So she was just getting by, and she had actually fallen behind on payments for the school where her boys were going, and actually had wound up with a lot of debt to the school that had to be paid off, just so that they could go to school the following year. And that's around the time that we partnered with the church and we met up with them and we're looking for ways to serve people in the community. And Diana and her boys were one of the families that they indicated would need some help, and explain this to them. So we were able to help through the ministry. We were able to help pay the previous year's tuition that she defaulted on, and then continue paying tuition for her boys so they could continue their education. Because without having that father figure, women are so strong and so resilient, but without having that father figure, all that really does is it perpetuates the problem and repeats that cycle of the same thing that their father did and abandoned them. Either that or they get recruited by gangs, and it's just a lot worse. The gangs offer work and steady income and even protection, but at what cost to your soul, really? So we came into contact with Diana and learned a bit about her story. And then after we got her boys in school and we started working with her, and she was also cooking and translating for some of our teams that came, and everybody absolutely just loved her. And she was always hustling, trying to do one thing or another. Like, she was working at the church had started a part of their ministry to help local women to make some money, And so she started working with them in that, and actually started directing the shop. And it was to make, souvenirs and stuff with the typical cloth of the Mayan Indians that would get sold at the market and the teams and stuff like that. And so she was doing that for a while, but it's just it all depends on the teams that come and who buys and all that kind of stuff. And so it really wasn't steady income. So with having such a desire to cook and loving to do it, we proposed to her, well, how about cooking school? What about chef school? And so she started that, and 2 long years through that, she finished, and it was hard. It was a high class chef school, and she graduated that. And since then, she actually moved back to the city. She had to go back because her family was her mom and dad were not doing well physically, and so she moved back in with them in Guatemala City, which is kind of far from us as a ministry to be able to directly support them. But we've kept in contact, and she continues working with teams and translating and stuff like that, and but also able to cook. And so she's gotten to the place where she has been able to make enough money to help support her 2 sons and help them to finish schooling themselves. And Andre himself actually went to chef school as well. I think he went to the same one that she did. And Estuardo finished his degree in computer science, and so he they both graduated, and it's just been amazing to see how they flourished in that. And it's not to say that they don't have difficulties, with the economy and the pandemic. It's been tough on everybody, but they continue to thrive. And it's just really awesome to be able to see that and witness that, even though they've moved a little bit away from where the ministry directly serves. We're still connected on social media and stuff, so it's really awesome to see how God has used that as an opportunity to bless his family, make them more self-sustainable, and help them to continue grow.
At the end of October 2022, Diana opened up her first restaurant in Antigua, Guatemala. So we are really excited to be able to visit her with one of our teams the next time we go down.